Apfelstrudel is probably one of the most famous desserts that's known all over the world when it comes to German desserts. And I'm going to show you how I make it today with my original German recipe. Welcome back to Hidden Oaks Homestead. Our friend Anna at the Fermented Homestead has invited us to take part in a sourdough collaboration for September. So this is our second video that we're contributing to this collaboration. We did some German sourdough pretzels in the last one, and in this one I figured I'll stick with my German roots, and we are going to bake some Apfelstrudel together. With this collaboration, we have a bunch of different channels collaborating with us and delivering different recipe ideas and different ideas on what to do with your sourdough starter, your sourdough discard, and so on. Please check them out. Anna over at Fermented Homestead is doing a drawing every week for amazing prizes and a big drawing at the end of the month. So be sure to check out the other videos in the playlist. Leave comments to be part of the drawing. I'm not an absolute pro when it comes to sourdough, and I have had my share of failed attempts. If you are just starting to try out sourdough and to try to get a starter going, don't give up. It takes a while to figure out what works for you in your environment, in your kitchen, with the bacteria that you have around yourself, and figuring out the type of flour you want to use. You can add over time different flours into your sourdough as well. So when you are feeding your starter, you can feed it with different flours and add different flavors to your starter overall. There's lots of experimenting that you can do with sourdough. The overall message is don't give up, keep going. If you're interested in sourdough for the health benefits, I encourage you to just keep trying until you figure out what works for you. Any of my recipes that you see in this collaboration that I am doing with sourdough, you can do with yeast. If you do not trust yourself with sourdough just yet, just supplement with some yeast. You will get overall the same results, but you won't get all of the additional health benefits that come with sourdough. Through this collaboration, I figured I'll share a little bit of my heritage and the recipes that I grew up with. Apfelstrudel was a big part of our Sunday afternoons at my grandma's house. We always had some kind of a cake. Apfelstrudel was one of the ones that we always went back to. It is fairly easy to make, though it takes a little bit of preparation in regards to cutting up apples and things like that. However, overall, it's fairly easy to make. We're really only looking at apples, raisins, some almonds or breadcrumbs if you would rather use those. And for the dough, we only need flour, water, a little bit of a raising agent. For us, that is going to be sourdough here, and some raisins. So as a first step, we want to get our dough started. The dough with the added sourdough starter will have to rest for a couple of hours to have the gluten established, the gluten structure established that we need for the strudel. The strudel dough that we're going to use, or that is traditionally used, needs to be stretched quite a bit, kind of like pizza dough, but a little bit further. So it needs to become very, very thin. And depending on how advanced you are with your baking, you can do it by hand, you can do it with the rolling pin. Then we just roll up all of the goodness of the apples and the almonds and the raisins into it, bake it, and then serve it with some ice cream or some vanilla sauce or something of that sort. First, we start with our flour. And let's see, where are we? Units. We need grams because we are working with my German cookbook. So we're going to start with the flour, which we need 250 grams. And we need to add some butter to this. So what I like to do, especially when it's strudel time, is do this on a board because you can really get your hands dirty and really get that gluten structure established. So we've got our flour weighed out, and we're just gonna dent it a little bit to add the rest of the ingredients. And we want an egg, because nothing wrong with some protein. We need our sourdough. This is 75 grams of sourdough that we're using for this recipe. Now we can just mix it all up. And slowly but surely we can add a little bit of water to it. We don't need much. Can let this rest. We're going to let the dough rest for about 30 minutes to 3 hours. We're going to check back after 30 minutes, see how it's doing. And we are going to cut up our apples in the meantime. We're going to core and peel all these apples. We need 2 pounds. 4 pounds. See, I got confused. 4 pounds. We need 2 kilos of apples. So that's a whole lot of apples that we need. All of the scraps are going to go to the chickens and the pigs. They're gonna love it. Donkeys might even get some. It's time for us to make the filling, which is basically apples, sugar, cinnamon, raisins, and almonds. So we're gonna mix everything up nicely, let it sit for a minute to flavor each other, and while we're letting the filling sit, we're gonna roll out the dough. Now if you'd like to, you can use different sweeteners, and we need 150 grams, so that's not a whole lot, especially if you have tart apples, which I prefer the tart apples with my apple strudel, but you can sweeten it however you would like. Oops, well, that was a little much. That's all right. A little bit too much cinnamon is not gonna hurt us. And then we're gonna mix it up. This smells like heaven. Got our almonds in. Our filling is ready. Now we're going to roll it out on a floured surface. You can start with a towel, but I like to do it here first. Get a good start in. And then we can pull it out further. Need a little bit of muscle for this. The reason we're rolling it out on a towel is pretty simple. We want to be able to roll our ingredients up into the strudel without tearing the dough. And the dough is going to be super thin, so we're going to use the towel as a support to not rip the dough. All right, now you see this? You can see my hands through this, which this is what we want. We want it as thin as possible. We rolled it out as much as we could. Now, we want to pull it a little bit more. And now it's time to fill it. We got some, can you see this? Boop. We got some melted butter. We got breadcrumbs. So the breadcrumbs add some texture, a little bit of crispiness to it. If you want to stay away from breadcrumbs, you can substitute with almond flour. And I would suggest just roasting it for a little bit to get some crispiness to it. And now we can fill this thing. Roll it up without breaking it. That's the hardest part. Now we're going to roll it up like a burrito. And now we go and put it in the oven. Here we go. The strudel is in the oven at 400 Fahrenheit. We're gonna bake it for 40 minutes and it should be ready to go. Now you can eat it straight out of the oven hot with some ice cream. You can cool it down and eat it with some vanilla sauce. You don't need to add anything, really up to you. It's a delicious dessert. And I hope you enjoyed the Apfelstrudel recipe making and followed it along. I'll leave a recipe down below for you to copy and paste and try it out. And I will see you in the next video.